Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to welcome everyone who joined us at this conference. The topic of this conference is really relevant to my mind. Opening remarks, Dalit Dasethavi, Senior Expert of BJC Group. And a round of applause, please.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, thank you. I already received. Okay, so welcome everyone. Really happy to be here this morning with you. Probably as you have heard already in the lead up and the previous discussions, we worked together on an economic vision for Ukraine where we covered different sectors, and now we are talking about the IT services and the technology sector. So where we started with, we tried to develop an economic vision for 2040 for Ukraine, which is a bit different from what you usually see because we wanted to really back it up with data and started from the information available and looking into what could be a realistic but attainable but still prestigious future for Ukraine. 6 key differentiators of this economic vision that it really started with the data. It looked what other countries did well, where Ukraine has differentiators and how it can win, and not only thinking about like top-down country level, but also going into the regional specifics and what each region can do to make the vision realistic. Where we landed is that, of course, there are going to be a couple industries who are leading the Ukrainian economy also in the future. There are the ones that you usually think about, but there are also a couple emerging ones. And the IT services and generally this IT sector is one of the emerging stars in the economy. It's not starting now, it's already going on for the last 10 years, but the share of the exports and the share of importance is just gonna be growing. So this is the right conference and the right setting to discuss on this and how to best leverage the industry and the knowledge that is already there. So if we take a step back, let's understand the sector globally. So the sector is growing quite rapidly. There was a 10% CAGR since 21, and it's expected to go on even into the future. And this is based on data that was before the AI boom that is happening right now. So this 10% is most likely going to be more like 15 going forward. But what you see and what will not change is that most of this demand is evolving in North America and in Europe. You see Eastern Europe is only a small part of that. And mostly this is going to be a service export. If we break it a bit down into the different services that is building up that global demand, you see cloud, consulting, and application and infrastructure development and implementation are the traditional leaders, with AI and AI-related services now coming up to the very top right corner of this. So high growth, high margin in that segment. Now that we understand a bit globally about the sector and how it is growing and what is expected, let's see where Ukraine starts from and how Ukraine can build on this and cut out its fair share from that growth. And on the left-hand side, what you see is a very interesting chart that the share of services exported from Ukraine. And you see IT services, the green bar, gradually growing from 20% to over 40%, just under like a 7-year period. It's very interesting and very important because this is one of the fastest growing sectors. And this is pure GDP income from the export sector. What you also see on the right-hand side is going to be that most of it is coming from technology services. Technology services, very simply, hardware and software related services. Everything else, data, infrastructure, telecommunications, very, very marginal. So really the hardcore, hardware and software, what we always think about in IT services. But how come Ukraine grew so fast into the IT sector, into such a big one in the country? You can see that if you look into a broader peer group, Ukraine managed to nearly triple its share of IT services in the export services segment compared to everyone else. It has outgrown everyone who is and you can see these countries are usually coming for the same market. So this is not the US, but this is mostly the countries who are providing services and providing outsourcing services. So what did Ukraine do well so far, and how we can turbocharge that going into the future? That's one of the big questions today. If you take a look at the market, the interesting piece, and this is a very, very positive outcome of the last 10 years, that while the Ukrainian IT market is dominated by international players and their local offices, there are a couple Ukrainian players who are already cutting their fair share. And there are 9 of them in the top 25, and most likely the number of them is going to be growing. So that means that innovation and investment into local IT and ICT companies is growing, and while there is also a need, there is also ample demand, ample supply of these companies. Doubling down on the innovation, the Ukrainian startup scene is one of the best and most growing in the region. There are investors who are focusing on Ukrainian startups. There is already a healthy pipeline of investments. There is also government support and government programs for this, but there are already a couple of unicorns. So if you look at the Ukrainian startup scene, it is one of the most buzzing in the region. Grammarly, GitLab, these are all worldwide known already. And this was even before the recent really big money pump into the sector, which is a bit connected to the war efforts, but already touching onto new segments where most of the other countries are not really investing. And that leads me to my next message, that this sector is super resilient. What we have seen, that most of the companies' profits did not, like the revenues, did not really shrink since the start of the war. And that meant that the whole sector needed to adapt, all sectors. But while all sectors usually has fallen quite a bit, the IT segment remained at similar levels that it started at. It required new capabilities. It needed to refocus some of the products. It needed to develop resiliency and continuity plans to ensure that the customer trust remains, but the delivery was uninterrupted. If we look into the future, what this could mean. This is like a very dense slide, but the message is that there are a lot of things where you can play within the IT services sector, and Ukraine has a very high right to win in some of the key and biggest and most growing sectors, namely the application and infrastructure development and implementation, the cloud, cybersecurity, which is emerging into even higher than what we have seen before, and also the consulting space. So this already gives you like a very strong foundation to build the sector on. But how to really do that? And in order to have a better understanding what we are dealing with and how to best think about the future, let's look a bit about the global leaders in the IT services sector. And global leaders not thinking about companies, but like countries who did it one way or the other right, and IT services are taking a very large share of their GDP and overall export segments. These are the usual countries that you would think about when you are thinking about IT services, but everyone has a bit different story here to tell. Ireland started early with tax breaks and building the education very early, like in the 70s. So now their IT services sector is globally known as like one of the biggest export centers. Israel is a very different story. Israel needed to invest a lot in research and development because it's a small country, not a lot of resources, and it was under constant threat. So it started with the defense and security sector, and that R&D spilled over into the IT services, and Israel, one of the cyber security hubs globally right now. India, again, a very different story. They started with the mass outsourcing. Everyone knows about Bangalore. But what they did on that, you had to build out the human resources to be able to outsource. But once you had that mass IT capability, they started to develop it. And now India is one of the most buzzing startup ecosystems globally. Just by sheer numbers, they are having the second most unicorns every year. USA, I would say everyone knows about the Silicon Valley, how it evolved. So it's a very different story. But what is interesting here, it was the close collaboration between the education and the research and development. So it was not set out with large government programs. It was a small set of people where they really married up research, development, and building things. And this is how Silicon Valley evolved. So it was the collaboration between the education and then later on the whole sector. And Estonia, again, very unique and a very good example. And we can learn from that quite a bit. So Estonia, a small country, and they did not really have a lot of money after the Soviet Union broke. So they started to digitalize everything. And that is how Estonia evolved into what it is right now. So they started digitalizing very early. So e-government, all those practices, very advanced. And what we could learn from all this is like putting together how to move forward. Probably the best way is to understand what are our core strengths and what we can learn from each of these examples. So just doubling down on Ukraine's right to win in the segment. Generally, what we have seen, there are four main factors: the educated, skilled labor, favorable business environment, access to capital, relatively low-cost labor, and public trust. What we see, you are already very strong in educated, skilled labor and favorable business environment. Regionally, very, very strong, and we will show a bit of detail on that. Access to capital growing, there is still room to grow there, and then it should remain a focus area. Relatively low cost labor, again, this was like a super core advantage. Now we need to keep it up, but generally Ukraine is in an advantaged position. And the public trust is the one that we need to manage throughout the current adversaries. Just doubling down quickly on the business environment, and I'm pretty sure you are going to talk about it quite a bit today, so I don't want to get into a lot of details here. But like the regional cluster setup and how it is structured right now, that's a very big advantage that Ukraine has, because it really enhances collaboration. And that was one of the key drivers behind developing Silicon Valley, the collaboration between education, the companies, and the local government. And having the IT clusters now in the country, this really fosters the same idea. And it is already working very well. Taking a quick look at the labor and the labor advantage. What you can see here is a very interesting chart. So on the left-hand side, the left-hand axis, what you see is like essentially how many open jobs there are in IT. It's the IT position overhang. On the bottom, you see like the average gross salary. And you can see Ukraine is in the top right. The top right means that you are managing to fill up nearly all the IT positions, very small overhang of IT positions not filled in the country with the general salary cost advantage. What you see on the other, like as you start moving towards the bottom left, the overhang of positions, essentially the unfilled positions, the still unmet demand for talent in the country is growing. But of course, the expected salary is also growing. So generally what we think, Ukraine will start moving down that line because the salaries are going to be catching up. But still seemingly, the education pipeline and the professional pipeline is so strong that you can keep up this advantage. If we want to bring all this together, this is a bold statement, but we expect within the vision that the IT sector's importance is going to be growing quite a bit. And from the 23 levels of GDP share, this can go up to like 3 to 5 times. You see, there is also going to be a bit of a de-averaging between the different segments within this, given the different growth factors of the segments and where Ukraine has distinct advantages to play. And we think you should double down there. And that would bring us to grow a lot in consulting, grow a lot in application and infrastructure development and implementation, and some AI related and the cybersecurity pieces. These are going to take up most of the GDP share from the sector. And there is always an upside if the relocation or like repatriation of the people and the companies that were leaving the country over the last couple of years. And to bring all this together, like how we see this sector, what is the overall sector vision that Ukraine can become an innovation-driven, highly skilled and acknowledged IT and technology solutions market and like a key center of innovation in new fields, in cybersecurity and other agri-tech and other newly emerging target sectors within the IT services and technology services. What we think is available or achievable at the end is that the gross value add from the IT services can reach up to 7 to 10%. And the growth of the export share from the IT services would still evolve in line with the gross value add growth that we see on the market. So I would close here. I would say this is a pretty visionary target to grow the sector to 3 to 5 times, given it is already one of your key export sectors. But we see strong foundations, very good environment currently, and a strong growth potential for Ukraine to become really a world acknowledged and world leading player in some of these services. I hope you will have very great discussions later today on some of these or most of these technologies. So thank you for your attention this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Balit, for your such interesting presentation.
So please allow me to invite for the next panel the speakers. Denis Sichkov, Horizon Capital. Святоslav Kavetsky, CEO, Industry Affairs NX Company. Stanislav Lurie, Head of Office of Savul in Ukraine. And as far as I understand, Alexander Kubrakov, We Built Ukraine. Thank you. Dear colleagues, dear partners, you know, we all are ambassadors of our country nowadays. And Ukraine nowadays, it's not just about agrarians, raw materials, but it's also about technologies, about incredibly cool startups, companies, and innovations that are conquering the world. So we are sure that innovations, partnership with the state, with innovation funds, companies, businesses are the key components to develop our country. Alexander, yeah, I'd like to start with you. You have big expertise and deep knowledge and understanding of Ukrainian IT. As far as I know, you were executive director of IT Ukraine Association, and now you're engaged in initiatives that are promoting economic development and recovery. Tell me, please, in your opinion, how do we build efficiently communication with international foundations? Well, maybe you can provide some recommendations, and yeah, in particular, we would like to hear that in defense industry. Thank you very much. Well, these are two different things, you know, IT sphere and defense. Well, actually, we have representatives of foundations here. They will tell in more detail how to communicate, how they are working with Ukrainian IT sphere. Well, actually, this sphere, in spite of war, in spite of everything that's happening, it's one of the fields that is remaining and where they are in more or less good position in comparison with other fields of economy. And they have similar problems, people, employment, blackouts, a bit less, but still, yeah, we have all of that. And then worries of our clients that are working with Ukrainian IT companies. All of that is not that simple, but indeed, in spite of everything, there are some M&A processes that are happening. Someone is selling something, someone is investing, etc. If we are talking about investment, so being sincere, most investments that are happening now during the war, usually these are projects that are co-financed or are participating in, I don't know, EBRD, IFC, if we are talking not just about IT, but about economy in general, because we are going to talk about energy and everything, and we'll see that most agreements or some investments are happening still with engagement of these institutions if the foundation will, again, deliver some speeches. So I think that still there are IFI financing in this or other way, or DFC, again, they are trying to do something, some agreements. So everybody's trying to secure their risks somehow, because well, no one can say that somebody can provide insurance or kind of some guarantees from war risks, but we need to secure our risks. So in some places we succeed more or less. And unfortunately, IT sphere also has to address this. Defense. Defense is more closed story, specific sector. Yeah, something is happening similarly, but unfortunately, we only have the first collaborations when Ukrainian producers or manufacturers are doing something together with foreign companies. These projects are not big because it's a very specific field still, and saying that some foreign foundations are going, well, are massively investing something, but we will have other speakers, maybe Yaroslav, and they have the public information about what they are doing with the Danish companies, so I can say for sure that it's the exclusion. You know, I can't say that all the doors are open for us. I can't say that everybody is waiting for us to invest. But still, we would like to hear a bit more in the context of how you communicate with foundations, with foreign companies, representatives, investors. How to build this line of communication? How do we persuade them that Ukraine, in spite of challenges, in spite of the risky investments that nowadays are caused by war risks, how can we persuade them that it's the right time, you know, to invest in Ukraine? Can you share your experience? Okay, if it's defense, it's clear, because Ukrainian companies actually, well, indeed, they are doing some things among the first ones in the world, and thanks to the fact that Ukrainian companies, they have one main competitive advantage. They are getting the feedback from the front line 24/7, and they are improving their technical solutions. So thanks to that, I think that we are interesting, and it's one of the arguments, as you are saying, that we or our sector is using. But again, it's a very specific field. Again, technologies, defense, this is regulated by the states. It's not that simple. If you're talking about IT, I think as for the IT, everything is pretty simple. Now is the 4th year of war, and still this field shows that A, it still exists, B, it is supporting defense sector, it is supporting economy and other sectors, and no matter how hard it is, still this field, well, it's the key part of our economy, and it won't disappear, right? Then this. Horizon Capital remains one of the most active investors into technologies. And we've been talking in couloirs about how Horizon Capital is keeping the factor for investing into IT and the sector of technologies. Tell us, please, how the investment climate has changed during the, we understand that there are war risks, again, in your opinion, and who is most resilient to these challenges? Thank you very much for your question. Well, as for changes in the investment climate, it's a dynamic situation, and we started fundraising of our foundation and our Horizon Capital Growth Fund, well, 4 and literally a few months after the full-scale invasion. It's spring 2024, February 2024, we have measured that, and that was the most unclear phase of what will happen with the economy of the country. And back then, we raised the foundation, focused on IT, exporters, and back then it was incredibly difficult because local risks were very important. And even in our thesis, we were focusing on the companies without physical assets and people from R&D in Ukraine, but without some significant assets that might be destroyed during hostilities. Now we can see the announcements of the colleague foundations that are much more focused on local assets nowadays, and we see that this is changing, and all of that thanks to bravery of Ukrainian warriors who are demonstrating that aggressor was stopped on a certain line, and even physical manufacturing can continue functioning in Ukraine, even though, of course, there are risks, and we are looking for some insurance, and that is a very important issue both for businesses and investors. So I think that chronology of how foreign investors are seeing Ukraine, I think it's a positive, positive opinion that they have, but still we are looking for some solutions, both for business insurances and also how we can be more resilient to Russian aggression, either that it is diversification of assets, etc. So what fields are kind of most promising, so to say? Historically, in the latest years, we had a lot of technical investments. We were investing the service IT businesses and like the market of products. So I think now there is a high turbulence for investment market, and again, the global landscape is changing significantly, and a lot of service companies, they have certain transformations, certain turbulence, and product models are changing as well, because new technologies are fully changing the landscape. And again, the decision, how people are consuming the products that they are using. We can see very successful B2B and B2C projects in Ukraine. In addition, well, indeed, we have very cool retail. We have very successful investments to retail. We can see the consumer campaigns that are producing, again, the world quality of goods, like Ajax, who are the leader on the market in Europe. So we can see a big part of product companies, right? Not that much of IT, but physical products. We see the big need in recovery of energy in Ukraine. These are more industrial projects that, of course, will get a lot of attention from investors. Taras is Aurora co-founder. Every 14 hours, one Aurora shop is opened. Yeah. What are the other successful investments that you had? Well, you know, it's like, who do you love more, mom or dad? You know, we are all very proud of all the companies in our portfolio from the point of view of growth. Aurora, Ajax, Krisho, Genesis, Rosetka. So these probably are the most dynamic companies. But again, we have very good service portfolio, Miratech, and we have big footprint Bekami, in addition to Rosetka, also Makeup and Medicine 24. Well, they are growing as well, and we are so happy to be where we are. Cool. Stanislav, Osavul is one of the brightest examples that Ukrainian company is engaging investments even during such turbulent times that we have in Ukraine. Your case is a wonderful example of the fact that the market of investments are alive. So how did you manage to get $3 million, if I'm not mistaken? Tell us, please, and share what challenges were there and how did you succeed? Well, thank you very much. Osavul is a technological company. We are creating the product which is using artificial intelligence and gives high added value. Well, it was created back in 2022, at the beginning, as a volunteer project to help Ukraine in terms of fighting the hybrid aggression. It was tensely cooperating and is cooperating with the Center for Prevention of Disinformation and is the main tool for performing its tasks. So it's the example of IT company which in particular has a big footprint in defense sector. It is noticeable. And I think it is one of the examples of successfully chosen time and direction or field of development, and very relevant both in Ukraine and in Europe. What is very important in terms of investments, the team of the project has done a lot, because the founders, Dmitro Bilash and Dmitro Prishakov, they are the entrepreneurs with a series of startups. It's not the first startup that they had, because before that they did exit. At the time, it was not that small, also $1 million, as far as I remember. And also, well, in general, the team means a lot for engaging investments and for investors, because the track of the team, track of people who were showing some result already, it looks convincing that in the future these people have high chances for success. Well, of course, the fact that at the time, well, again, as you're talking about 3 million, at that time the company had a very good traction on contracts, commitments, POC, both in Ukraine and abroad. And accordingly, they had the opportunity to show, well, not just the plans for their development, the pipelines, but as a matter of fact, the contracts that they had, the money that they received, to show their dynamics, because it looked and it looks now really good and promising. And that was also very important. Thank you very much. I'd like to move on. Sviatoslav, we are talking to you. We are actively engaged in a very interesting and important project on the text-based DSCT. NX company, well, it is good, it's joining different initiatives. Tell us, please, your personal opinion regarding this space. How relevant it might be from the point of view of investments, scaling businesses, and do you like DSCT? Well, politcorrect answer is yes, of course. I'd like to make one step back, and come back to the presentation, what was there, what was lacking for our acknowledgement, what is IT sector in Ukraine. It's not just the first, it's the second expert field in general, right? So we only have the agrarian sector that is kind of on the first place, but it is more in spite of the fact that other sectors were kind of reducing their turnover. But we need to understand that if it is the field that ensures approximately 7 billion of export income that allows to avoid inflation, etc., it's a very useful thing. Secondly, the field itself, it is very resilient because it is really hard to somehow damage its sustainable development when the engineer only needs the laptop and access to the internet. That's all they need for work, and we have it available on the territory of Ukraine. The field was growing since the 90s when the first companies like Miratech, one of the first Ukrainian IT companies, Ajax is one of the oldest ones, they were growing naturally, step by step, and in 2010 or something like that, like NX in 2002 as a product startup, became a service company for 2.5 thousand of engineers. The field was growing thanks to, well, whether somebody likes that or not, but thanks to the possibility of working via the private entrepreneur model, it remains the main one. But before the war, before the full-scale invasion, I mean, when we started implementing the DSCT regime, we were preparing the law and the cooperation between the businesses and the state. It was approximately 6 billion of income. So naturally, without some interventions and attention from the state, they could grow to a significant level. And back then, they were the first export field.
Нову історію для держави, це історія про
DSCT started a new pattern about the trust between the state and the entrepreneurs. Because let's talk about benefits. You can become, as an entrepreneur and an enterprise, a resident of DSCT, and after the first year, you submit an audit report, and this report is far away from what we want it to be still, but still, you need to fill out way fewer fields than you could before. So becoming clear, transparent for your clients, for your investors, that could be your customers too, that is what matters to the Western Europe and the US. Of course, the war makes things worse, but I remember the time when DSCT was just introduced, and I was connected with Canada for some time back then, and many Canadian enterprises were interested in Ukraine and joining this legal regime. But of course, the full-scale invasion hindered this, but we have a great foundation to make sure international players join Ukrainian market, create their centers, and invest in Ukrainian enterprises. If we take the IT sector, the classical IT sector, the product and service market, usually those companies are oriented towards Western countries. In X, we are not looking for foreign investment. But of course, as a company, you need to grow continuously in order to survive. For product companies, it can be interesting in the first place because by working in Ukraine, they can attract investment through clear and comprehensible investment tools that are clear to investors. And I'm thankful to the Ministry of Digital Transformation because they are helping to build the proper dialogue between businesses and the state according to the businesses' expectations, even though there are some shortcomings. And as our expert mentioned, there is a number of clusters and sectors, ST Union in particular, thanks to which we can get feedback, and that informs our dialogue with the state. So this is something that has good potential. And of course, there are some limits and constraints, and one of them is the war and the fact that this legal framework is surviving even despite the war, even with some paces of growth that are slowing down. Still, we can remain optimistic and plan optimistically. Why can IT sector grow in Ukraine? In terms of Ukraine's recovery, this is a sector that transforms Ukraine from IT destination to tech destination. DSCT enabled non-IT companies to compete for IT talents. When talking about agro companies or banks, they use DSCT and they use the preferential taxes, they can change Ukraine from IT destination to tech destination country. What are the most prospective markets in Ukraine, in your opinion? So the countries towards which you would like to go. So the bulk of our portfolio is in the US, but that goes for many companies who have more than 500 engineers. Then UK, then DACH, Scandinavia, and the rest of the world. When talking about our focus, we can't but focus in this order, because this is a natural order for us, natural order of clients. There is a word of mouth that brings us more clients from other countries, and of course with your help. But what is interesting, in my opinion, is Scandinavia. They have smaller markets, but a good culture of cooperation. They're not interested in low prices, but they're interested in relationships. And this is good for a stable partnership. Additionally, they are developing green economy, autonomous transport, health tech. Those are sectors that are relevant and pertinent for Ukrainian expertise. The US will remain as a major market for IT services and products in the world. We're also interested in Asia, Southern Korea, and Japan. We have certain portfolio with them, but with Korea, we don't have rates that are much superior to Ukraine, and it takes a lot of effort to perpetuate our cooperation with them. And the Western Europe will remain relevant for us too. Okay, gotcha. In one of the conferences, Vyacheslav Klimov, Nova Poshta, said one thing. The nightmare of an entrepreneur is that when the state says, we want to help you out. So your experience was that you was at that side of the barricades in state, Alexander. What do we need as a country to make sure that the state works in synergy with businesses? And secondly, let's talk about We Built Ukraine. Thank you for this question. So this is our goal, to make sure that the state is a partner for businesses. And since you mentioned Nova Poshta, together with Vyacheslav, we had a couple of meetings and we wanted to settle down issues about the border. And sometimes we needed to communicate on different issues. And this is a good format, a workable format of cooperation, because that is about justice. Each party will believe that the other party is wrong and is faulty and that their interests are not being taken into consideration. So striking the balance between the interests of the state and the business is not that obvious. So we have Ukrzaliznytsia, Ukrainian railways that are in an active dialogue with the state. In 21, we had dialogues with businesses, and they were not, they were complex. And businesses do not want have higher costs, higher expenditures, and they will be categorically opposed to that. But when we talked with businesses back then in 2021, we needed to consider financial state of companies. So Ukrzaliznytsia faced really bad situation, default, bankruptcy in 2021, and I remember that clearly. And then the state says, okay, then we need to increase the tariffs, right? And Ukrzaliznytsia gradually changed their attitude. We suggested that they extend their export. IT sector has never been the biggest export sector in Ukraine. The agro sector has been taking this top spot. So agro has been and is the first leading sector in export. Yeah, but then we thought we could export more through our southern ports, and when in 2 months we included Berehova station and Chernomorsk. Ukrzaliznytsia sat down with us and thought, okay, so we could make more profit off of it. So we had Pivdenny port. Let's double or triple the tariffs. And we are doing this with your approval as a company. So this is how we are looking for the balance. Talking of we built Ukraine, in fact, when I was in the government and when I represented Ukraine to multi-donor platforms, they would say that we have limited amount of money. How can we choose the right sector? How do you prioritize? Do you have a strategy at the governmental level? So we consider the documents prepared before the war, and they were outdated. And whenever it seems to you that everything is all right, then it means that you are intentionally not seeing the shortcomings. So we started dealing with BCG, in order to plan for the future. So when I left the government, we ended the project later than scheduled. But the economic strategy is still there. The economic strategy that has been developed is still there, and it accounts for new realities, a smaller territory, smaller amount of population, territories beyond governmental control. But On the other hand, we have access to the European markets. Geography of our exports shifted, especially in agro sector. Europe is number one, and rather than China. So that document was based off of it. And the document cannot be universal, and it should be updated regularly. But still, we have from 5 to 7 sectors and areas that give us 80% of success. Let's say agro, irrigation systems. If they improve the irrigation, then we increase exports, and then we have windows of opportunities that are rising. And investment is flowing better in Ukraine. Okay, so populism can be beaten by results. Let us keep up the good work. Denis, I would like to ask you about Horizon Capital. You are interested in stable businesses rather than in startups. But is your policy changing? Are you looking at startups with interest? So let's say I am a startup and I want to join your group. How do I do that? So we continue our strategy of growth by equity. We are investing in companies that have proven the stable sustainability of their model, and they're making a good profit. But still, we are encountering projects even at earlier stages. We are trying to help them to scale up. And in our pipeline, we have a certain vacuum. So there are companies that we are taking that have a vacuum in terms of investment in their pipeline. And we can also take some startups, look at some startups in accelerators that have at least 3.5 million in their pipeline. We are looking at startups that are showing some gaining traction, and their development should be quite fast in order to reach the necessary volumes. We are also looking at the quality of their team, the industry where they are working in, and it's quite difficult to build a successful business in a complex niche, complex industry. So we are choosing and picking the industrial focus, the technological focus, on maybe even some more traditional industries. We mentioned Aurora, and they have chosen and have taken a very obvious niche. So this is a sort of store, house holding items, and we are looking for players in certain niches, even if those niches are different from what we are used to invest to. Will we have Aurora in every multi-story building? Well, Nova Poshta is almost there, but Aurora will be present in Bulgaria and Romania, and they are building an international business with its heart in Ukraine. But I don't think that they will be available in every multi-story apartment building. So the philosophy of Aurora goes that each Ukrainian needs to be able to buy whatever they fancy, and that item that they are buying should be worthy of them. This is a multi-year strategy. And Stanislav, the last question to you, and then we'll have a brief round of questions. Regarding startups, there are many startups that are launching their businesses, their activities, and along the way they are facing many difficulties. In terms of practical things, what do you do in order to stay there, to not give up? Any practical advice? Well, that's complex issue. This is very individual thing. We've met with a big American entrepreneur who actually built an empire, if you will. And their story is very unique in terms of developing that startup. He was driven, and his friends were killed by the policemen when they were arrested. And it was his personal motivation to do something to make this world a safer place, to make a difference in the law enforcement bodies. So he invested all his private capital, all his savings, his family savings, into his affair. He almost faced bankruptcy once, but that internal drive was urging him and fueling him to come over those challenges. And now he is one of the most highly paid executives. I think you can find him if you Google him. From top 500 companies, he has the biggest salary as a top manager. And the share of his bonuses regarding his salary is big. So the salary is rather modest, but the bonuses he gets are huge. So it's not exactly about his story that I want to talk. But what I'm saying is that it's really difficult to give a one-size-fits-all advice, because you need to look at your enterprise and look for your own answer to your questions and challenges. And one more thing that I would like to add regarding Scandinavia and its potential for Ukraine, just a remark. Apart from venture funds and investment platforms, the interest in quick profit in Scandinavia, what they value is personal commitment and relationships, a possibility to make an impact. We talk to them at different investment events, and they have always mentioned that we invest with our heart. We are here in Ukraine to make investment. These are not grants. We want this money to work as a business. We want them back. But they need to know that they are making a difference and their investment will be impactful. So this is interesting for startups where you have sort of ceiling where you cannot go higher and higher, but you are dealing with an important cause, maybe a social entrepreneurship. So as a piece of advice, you can take the following: build relationships, do networking. Even though I dislike this word as such, networking, your service and your item will be interesting for someone, for sure. So open your heart, open your eyes, and you will find opportunities. And to wrap up, could you just say a couple of words about the current challenges and any solutions on how to bring businesses, investment actors, and state in synergy? So from state, we want a more transparent legal framework and political will to make sure businesses have easier time when operating. Then we must invest in education, because once the state and businesses stop investing in education, human capital dwindles. And we must preserve human capital. That is super important. And for businesses, you need to scale it in Ukraine rather than abroad. Even though it may sound unattractive, we need to create jobs in Ukraine. I would say that IT industry needs to take interest in defense sector, because I know some companies are doing something, but most companies, and I understand this is a sensitive topic, it may impact negatively their investors and their clients. Most IT companies are not involved in defense. And many things are being done in the field by grassroots initiatives, but IT companies could take it to the next level in 2 months. And I'm cautious saying this. Some IT companies are proposing ideas for civilian life. So we have maps or navigators or virtual services. So when I'm saying this, I think that I bet that that brigade would really benefit from that service or from that item. IT sector can innovate, and many innovations also took their origin in the defense sector. Financing and deadlines, that is what characterizes defense sector. And that also is similar to the IT sector and their type of operation that they're used to. And of course, civilians are still donating for many initiatives, but IT could really structurize it and take it to the next level. I believe in the market, I believe in entrepreneurship, and just to give the liberty of entrepreneurship to businesses, and it's going to be all right. Yeah, Ukraine is a country of entrepreneurs, and we are as sharks who must be on the move in order to survive. And Ukrainian entrepreneurs can find ways to survive under any condition. Thank you. Many things have been said, and I support the point about defense sector. Defense sector is not only socially and publicly important, it is also attractive commercially. We have not seen the boom of investment in defense sector in 2024, we didn't see it. But throughout 2025, we are seeing at some profile events that the interest towards defense sector is growing. It's still rather cautious. There are no systemic prime players in this field. They are just touching the ground. They are making some individual interventions in order to test and try the potential. What defense sector is producing is not the first in the world in terms of innovation, but still the fact that defense sector is one of the few that are really providing workable solutions for the challenges of this world and in the real front line. That makes this sector really relevant. And the interest towards this sector will be gaining traction in the future. This is just a question of time, but judging from the dynamics as I see it, I think in the nearest year or two, we will see the renewed paces of growth of this sector compared to those we saw at the border of 2024, 2025, and the recent investment in IT and defense are proving that the Czechs are growing, and they are growing in a rather stable fashion.
Thank you very much for this discussion panel. At the end, I would like to say that actually I really like Brzezinski, and he once said that this world is holding on a wise power, and he was comparing the history with the chessboard, where the population is not just competing with their power, but also with senses and their faith in people and freedom. And Ukraine is a very good example in this sense. Have a good day. I give the floor to the next speaker. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I wanted to make a physical exercise. So we need to return the focus of our attention to let us give another round of loud applause. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the mic. So we are switching to our next panel discussion. And yep, now we can switch. So everything has changed. We are going to talk about human capital as a key asset. So I would like to invite to this floor our speakers. First of all, Yuri Antoniuk, Vice President and Head of EPAM in Central and Eastern Europe. He will join us online. Yeah, we will expect to see him on screen. Sniezhana Katsuba, Chief HR Officer, Modox X. Sniezhana, please take the best seats because you are the first one. Oles Dobrosavich, Dean, Faculty of Applied Sciences, UCU. Yeah, please applause. Natalia Teryahina, HR Director, Colonel. And Marina Mirkina, leading trainer and speaker in IT education. Hi, you're looking so good. Okay, 2 minutes to set everything up. Are you tired or not? How are you? Are you ready to talk about human capital? Because now it will become really hot, because as you know, on labor market, something unclear is happening, and nowadays we will try to find some positive notes, so to say, in order to realize what is expecting the labor market of Ukraine in the following years. So the first question is just, to reduce the hidden things, but to talk about the most complicated things straight away. So Natalia was writing a post that there is flow of stuff. So how do we keep Ukrainian IT specialists in our country, and how do we encourage those who left abroad to return? So Natalia, let us start with you, because you've been writing a lot about that in LinkedIn recently, and I think you have something to say about that. So just try the mic, whether it's working. Hi everyone, thank you very much for the invitation. And actually it's a very good question, because the agrarian sector is not really associated with IT sector, but I think that we can talk about some examples. We have our own IT company because most developments we are doing with our own resources, or we are engaging IT outsourcing companies. But as a matter of fact, we are coordinating all of that on our own. And we also have development IT support. 10,000. If staff, it's approximately 200. But if we are talking that you have 200 people IT company, it's already the average IT company. And from one side, we are a big business and we have the opportunities of the big businesses, like agrarian, as it was mentioned by the speakers today. This is a sphere which is number one in exports. However, we are not IT. And how do we engage and keep IT when we are the production company? When you have 10,000 people, you cannot so to say, put tennis tables in each premise or feed everyone with lunch, as IT companies do. And you have to choose. How do you create a system of engagement from the point of view of benefits and system of compensation, so that it is fair internally, but at the same time you can be the player, If we are talking about what we are doing from the point of view of engagement and keeping the IT staff, we are selling senses more. In this company, you can make the product and see the result. Well, not all IT companies can provide you with this, especially if they are working for other markets and they are providing the outsourcing services. There are IT developers, IT teams that are interested in that. So they want to see and develop certain product from inside. That is one component. The other component from the point of view of development, we are developing the teams from inside. We are developing the developers, business analysts. It is not always easy because, well, when you're not an IT company, you don't have such a number of projects and experts that you can use to develop your internal resources. I understand that we can develop our agrarians and heads of clusters, etc., but not IT development. But where we can do that, we are doing that to the maximum. So, for example, the developers, there are developers of vision, and the vision developers, it's hard to find them on the market or engage. And in addition, we are not paying the higher salary, higher wages than on the market, because for us it's quite a big part of expenditures. So we are balancing between what we can offer to IT. Senses, possibility to impact the result, possibility to see what you're implementing, market conditions, and development inside. If we are talking about how the market has changed nowadays, in IT, the flow of people is quite low. So in general, it's up to 10%. The whole company, in the whole company, not just IT team, but in IT team, I think it is lower than 10% even. So that means that our tools are working, right? And we were talking here about senses. So senses are important for people. For people, it is important what they are doing, and transparency and trust are important for them. And I think that part of kernel culture in general is that we are delegating, we are trusting, we have transparent system of goal setting, and we want to have business results and some bonuses and benefits. And this what gives the basics during unstable times. Because if we're talking about the system of like keeping your staff, in my opinion, during unstable times, it is very important for the company to be able to become an island of stability for people. And it might seem that it is only important for linear stuff. But no, it is important for most people because we are living in really chaotic times and we have huge challenges. And when the company with their actions are showing this, it doesn't mean that you are always paying. It means that you are warning beforehand when you are changing something. So we had 1 year when we had to reduce salaries, and the main thing was to inform people that we are doing that. So we reduced 10% of salary, but including top managers. So such details are important for people because people can see this transparency and this trust, and they spend more time with you. We are saying like, okay, look, these are the hard times. So when, everything was standing and the sea did not work, like the marine transportation. And we were saying like, please do understand us. We are warning you. If you're not okay with that, well, of course, you can always quit. But we almost had no one left, right? But when the sea was available again and we were taking the goods, and then we had the good margin on the market of oils in the world, and then in the second year of the full-scale invasion, we raised the salaries, we paid all the bonuses and extra bonuses. So we said like, look, here it's difficult for us, please stay with us. And next, if everything's gonna be fine, we will be able to return to all the previous conditions. That's what we did. And this moment for people, in my opinion, is very important nowadays, and it is really impacting. Yeah, it's clear when the business is surviving and they have to cut their expenditures. First of all, they are looking at the number of people, etc. But you should always pay attention to what you're doing, not how you're doing that, but what you're doing and how. So this part has always also impacted our IT direction, because we are not competing with the market with the classical benefits. We have medical insurance. In our office in Kyiv, we have coffee, tea, milk, basic things, because we are the production company, and it's a separate moment. We are not creating the benefits for everyone that we cannot provide to people in the offices, because the operator of the elevator is earning and the agrarian is working in the field, and it's not the accountant in central office who is earning the money. Accountant is very important, but the money is earned in the fields. So it's very important when we are creating the system for supporting people to make this system as adjusted as possible so that it is fair internally, because internal fairness is more important than material stuff for people. But as far as we are working in defense, recruiting, and Aurora is our client, so we are working for IT as well. So this non-material motivation, transparency, and care of staff now is among the priorities, prioritized motivation in terms of selection of companies. So you are winning from the companies who still try to compete in terms of salary, because it's a very short-term motivator. When the employee and the company are working transactionally, like we did it and you paid us, it might work. It's a certain culture, but usually in a long-term perspective in difficult times, it won't always allow you to survive difficult moments. Thank you very much, Marin. I'm also interested in your experience because you're working with students. How do you see the flow of staff? How do we keep them in Ukraine? How can we keep them in Ukraine in the companies? Because Natalia has highlighted nicely that on their level, they are keeping their staff. So maybe you can highlight on all Ukrainian level, how do we keep our staff and what do we do working with talents? Well, I think you mentioned a lot already, and I can just highlight and sum up what Natalia has mentioned and what you have mentioned. That is the input to stability. But stability, it's not just about some routine and sustainability, but it's about the fact that the employee is confident that tomorrow he has a job, and in 1 month, in 1 year, he has a job. And also a big role is the role of training, because just like Natalia has mentioned, there is a possibility of retraining, requalification, and come from one department to the other one to develop in IT. And this is what is keeping people, when the employee knows that at least somewhere, at least at his work, he has this island of stability where he will come and there will be familiar problems and tasks he can cope with, because the world is changing rapidly, let us say so, nowadays. And, well, the wages are losing the popularity. Yeah, of course, we are working in order to get the salary, but in long-term sense, it's not working. Relationship, people, that is what is working. Opportunities, that is what's working for you. And as for the flow of people, have some strategies how to keep your staff, and maybe you will give us some advice. How do we do that for Ukrainian businesses, so that we can keep the staff, not just in companies, but in Ukraine, in the country? Tell us about your experience. First of all, the topic is very complicated because, as a matter of fact, it is combined with the previous panel, when the colleagues were talking about the economy and about defense tech and other things. And of course, now the situation has changed rapidly. I agree with my colleagues, Natalia and Marina, that, the staff flow is not that big, but I think it's because of the difficult situation, because in the market nowadays, the demand for IT specialists is smaller than it used to be like 4 or 5 years ago, when after COVID, the industry was growing significantly and globally. Huge challenges came together with AI, because you can see a lot of news in this regard, and from one side they're positive, from the other side a lot of people are considering whether they are in the right place that will guarantee some safety for them from the point of view of employment. So I think that now there are really difficult tendencies in the market, and of course for us, for companies, for big companies, also with around 10,000 of employees, nowadays we have such an approach that we would like to ensure the job and safe job for our employees in Ukraine. And that is why the company is doing everything possible in order to have sustainable conditions for work and for people to work with no problems. And we succeed in the latest years. But the challenges that we have right now, they set the new tasks for us. First of all, we need to understand how do we ensure employment for young specialists, because I am confident that both, like Marina understands it perfectly well, and other colleagues of ours, because now the demand for young specialists is not that high, let us be honest, and there is such a belief for many clients, I think, or technological leaders, that AI can perform the function of younger specialists. And of course, it creates big disadvantage, right, or big difficulties for employing people. And of course, some colleagues of mine who wanted to return, now they are asking themselves question, is that a space environment for them to work in? But we also see big impact of defense technologies. And just like Alexander Kubrakov has mentioned during the previous panel, defense tech is one of the drivers of IT development in Ukraine, and I'm confident that many specialists will be trained in IT, and they are considering defense tech with big hopes, because these directions are getting some financing. So summing up, I would like to say for our specialists to stay in our country and for them not to leave, and for young specialists to come to industry and stay in this industry, we need both external conditions, like conditions related to safety, related to correct work, and also there should be some internal conditions that the companies are creating. I mean, that is the opportunity for young specialists to gain experience. That is very important. That is a possibility for the specialists to see themselves in defense tech, also to, well, you know, to make some more attractive conditions for them and the possibility to create the product, which is important for many people, which is like it was mentioned. And the third important thing is that it's state support, because the industry is very mobile, and we can see that when there are some weaknesses, then from the point of view of leaving the country, it might go somewhere strongly. I think that state support should remain in place. Well, unfortunately, of course, there are different calls to shorten DS city or do something like that. I think it will be a huge mistake. Because as a matter of fact, those are issues concerning education and employment and what the companies themselves can do. Thank you very much. As an active career consultant, very often I was recommending some internship at your place, because I think you're always on a very high level for young specialists, so you're doing very right things. Yeah, and you know, I would like to say that even during these difficult years, around 1,000 young specialists are taken to the company annually, and most of them stay with us. But of course, the situation is changing rapidly in the global market, so we are very grateful for support of education, as it is done right now. Okay, Snezhana, my question is to you. Yuri has highlighted defense direction nicely. However, once non-classical IT companies, they were competing with IT companies. In the last 4 years, they came to the labor market and they are competing with the manufacturing companies because defense needs electric mechanics and other stuff. So in your direction, in your sphere, how do you see this problem of staff flow and also competition with defense companies? That, well, of course, they raise the focus and the need in manufacturing specialties. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to your colleagues for your opinions. I share everything that was mentioned. I will try to add a bit from my side regarding the previous questions and defense as well. If we are talking about the problem of staff flow, I would say that it is not equal for everyone. We know that IT market is 300,000 specialists in Ukraine, right? From 20 to 40%, according to different sources, are working abroad. And it's a potential big risk. And the numbers that require our attention. Again, as it was mentioned during the previous panel, IT field is one of the expert fields. The second place, on the second place after agrarian experts. So it makes sense to pay attention to this. And if we are talking about the things that are important for our specialists, we are communicating with them quite a lot, and we see both points that colleagues have mentioned. Critical is the need of these two directions of Maslow's hierarchy, you know, basic safety and working with sensors. Both things work together, and one can't do without the other one. As for the basic safety, it's a hybrid format for us because that is the office with the equipped shelter where you can work perfectly well in the moments when it is needed, when it's dangerous to work in the office, you know. And it's basic safety from the point of view of mental well-being, because we are working a lot with the psychological support, both of our specialists and their families. From the point of view of working with senses, then of course here I agree with everyone that is very important because in our time, the possibility of understanding that you are doing something important, it is crucial. And it's really needed. Otherwise, you are losing your senses. So thanks to the fact that the IT company in data company, so our client is a critical infrastructure, our IT specialists are working in projects that are working with development and support of critical infrastructure. So from the point of view of senses, we succeed to well, to talk, to promote, to tell about these interesting projects from the point of view of a broader framework. Yeah, I agree here that it is important to have some stability. So dear city conditions, it's a very cool story because it can return Ukrainians home. We see lots of examples when the specialists in Ukraine are getting higher wages than specialists in Poland and other countries, And I totally agree that we are not competing in terms of salary, including because of the fact that it is the field that, well, gives you the level. So you can pay that in the market. Some can allow themselves to pay higher wages, but if you pay lower wages, the person still can cover their basic needs. We need to work with that as well. So when we are talking about DSCity, it's a very cool project. However, its sustainability and discussions around it, it's very important. It is also very important to develop the image of Ukraine as technological hub. We have it. We have very cool projects of international level. IT teams, Ukrainian IT teams are doing Grammarly, Ajax, and other things, and we can continue this line. We have to talk about that. We have to discuss that, and, well, the importance of that should be highlighted. As for defense, returning to that, of course, it's a direction that gives the census, that is the input to victory. That is what, of course, it's very hard to compete with that. Maybe we don't even have to compete with that because it is one of the extremely important directions nowadays. So my opinion is like that. Very good opinion. Thank you very much. And Elias, a question to you as representative of educational field. What kind of tendencies or criteria or insights do you see in terms of that the flow of stuff is happening in Ukraine, and it continues happening? And Marina has highlighted that it's very hard to hunt, and sometimes there is no one to hunt, and we've never had such a problem on the market. So can you highlight, and please, what do you see in this regard, and what should we do from the point of view, well, maybe of working with educational field? Yeah, the first tendency that I see is that actually Ukrainian education is totally not competitive on the European market, and it is due to the fact that the border was closed for men and a global integration and comparison on the university level disappeared fully. That led to the fact that we are making some competition. We are closed in Ukraine. We are making competition of works in AI, and the whole world is competing on the international arena. We are competing in our arena. It still can be changed because the borders were open nowadays. But it's the question to universities. Are the universities ready to reintegrate to international context? Because actually, in the last 3 years, the universities were fully closed from international context. And we can talk a lot about 2 or 3 students, I don't know, hundreds of students who went to international conferences. But as a matter of fact, it's about nothing. Because when half of the group will go for a vacation somewhere to some exhibition, they will just spend some time there, they will get acquainted with students in Europe for integration and for understanding of international context. What and how is happening is much more important than 3 or 4 students who went to Erasmus. This is trend number 1, and that is absence of international integration, and this is impacting significantly and will impact in the future. A second trend that I see is that we are not coping with the task of our education. So actually everything that has to be done by the school education, well, they have to upbring the citizen. Because as a matter of fact, the person is graduating school and they have the right to drink, to smoke, and to vote. It's a citizen of Ukraine. And Yeah, and drive the car. Yeah, and drive the car. So actually you can do everything and you have all the rights from the point of view, like person, on personal level. And if we take the graduate of school who was, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago, and the school graduate now, actually his independency is much lower. Why? Because students in many parts of the country are trained online. The Ministry of Education, of course, is making huge work to take everyone offline, and sometimes I would even say it is too acute, so to say, like they are scolding people because they are not offline. Sometimes it's too much, but it's great work. However, this problem exists globally. We have to understand how do we resolve this and how do we stimulate the students in order to, you know, communicate with each other so that they have some kind of communication. If we are talking about the third trend that I would like to mention, well, obviously, it is, well, technical skills are becoming worse. But it's a complicated story because it is very prolonged in time, I would say, and it is very hard to assess whether it's a temporary notion or it's, you know, something that we will face in the nearest years. We have been all discussing the fact that now we have the request not just for IT specialists, but also high demand for specialists on robot technique, machinery, and many other fields. What do we see? The students who are applying for technical specialties, the top educational institutions of Ukraine, I don't know, 100, 110. If you get those points, join the electricity. 100, 110, I don't know, it's a horrible result. And at the same time, it's the state. The state will pay for your education. So big amount of money goes for training specialists, and we do understand that they will be not highly qualified. We need highly qualified specialists. And it's a complicated issue because as we see from other side that in IT, well, people who are coming for IT specialties, they are good students. There's a lot of good students. There is dynamics. Why? Because the state was investing a lot of money into this. We've been talking for dozens of years, you need to go to IT, they will have good salaries. Now there is a situation that, well, we are not talking about engineering specialties that actively, and kids still have this, they're not thinking about this story, you know, and it's a big work from the side of the state has to be done. It's not about 1 or 2 years, it's about dozens of years. We have to say that, and again, other fields are also important.
Насправді агро теж, це там, де є величезна робота з точки зору профтехорієнтації і роботи, власне, з студентами, тому що, мені здається, що якраз, історія, яка мене просто зачепила від одного вищого навчального закладу, агровуз, в якого, в назві агро, реклама публічного адміністрування програми освітнього програмування. Йди на публічне адміністрування, якщо не хочеш крутити свиням хвости.
Це в рекламі, так?
Так, це реклама
Слоган.
від програми, публічного адміністрування. Що ви робите? Ви, топите, інші, напрямки, яких мега не вистачає спеціалістів, яких, я впевнений, чудові заробітні плати, готові платити. Але ми, починаємо один одного топити, незрозуміло, нащо. І це про питання того, щоб конкретному школяру донести, а що є справді важливо і що є ключовим, для цього напрямку. Що ключовим є для держави і де, насправді, держава найбільше потребує спеціалістів.
Дуже гарне питання підняв.
Та, Наталь. Дуже дякую за цей коментар щодо профорієнтації школярів, тому що якщо подивитися, сама популярна спеціальність.
So the most popular subject this year was management. And, you know, management is a broad notion. So you should be a sort of an expert. You are showing results and you are being promoted. But without a hardcore expertise, management is nothing. So when you have a diploma in management, you don't have a profession, to be honest. And this is the biggest number of graduates that have graduated with management in their diploma, in degree in management. So those professions that we need most are getting the smallest amount of children. In high school, they can add some subjects that are beyond the curriculum, and agro production. So this is the subject that we added in some communities, in some schools. So we developed curriculums and reference books, textbooks, and we have around 1,500 children enrolled in this subject. And we will also have modules in engineering and production, because we are understaffed in these areas even more than in agro. So you're developing a textbook and you're training teachers, and then you just leave it to itself. It starts moving and working. It starts functioning without your involvement. And the only thing that you need to be concerned is paying them some benefits. And let's take the census, 1999, 250,000 children. We had some increase in the 90s. As soon as the Ukraine's economy started developing faster. So our plan now is to develop textbooks and subjects in engineering and energy. We need energy specialists a lot, because this is a bottleneck in this economy now. Not too many students are getting enrolled in energy faculties. So we are trying to do our best, and also to do career consulting sessions at schools. Because some students may be just unaware of such areas of economy, and they don't need to leave their hometown in order to get a highly paid job. And some children may have an impetus to choose a certain profession, because some children can feel an urge to become a robotics engineer or agro specialist, because many children are influenced by their parents in their career decisions. But what we need to invest is just invest in the textbook, invest in teacher training, and communities are very responsive to such initiatives. Wow, such a great example. I think this is something that can be done here and now on the part of businesses. What are the specialties that are in the top now? How it is different from the previous years, and what's next? So I'll start with your last question. What has changed over the recent years? And Oles said that the technical specialties in IT are losing traction. Fewer and fewer students are being enrolled in classical coding, programming, web design. Cross-cultural subjects are gaining traction. Data analysis in particular. So according to the International Economic Forum statistics, analytics, data analytics is one of the leading areas, and this is a multidisciplinary area. It can be done in not only in IT, in agro, and in agro, they need data analysts. Then in HR, that has been considered erroneously as a humanities. Data analysis is becoming more and more popular, as well as other multidisciplinary and cross-sectoral professions. Okay, then data analysis. Who else? Then marketing and something. Marketing and HR. Marketing and design. Marketing and development. So you take marketing and you add any other area, and you are sure to get a very popular profession in high demand. Then let's take education. Looking at our audience, here we're talking more about reskilling and upskilling, and reskilling is more important than upskilling. That is, say I worked in one area and now I'm coming to another. And when people understand that one area is not really their cup of tea, they need to change their profession completely. They're looking for opportunities to do it on the state budget. And short courses that are offering such reskilling are also popular. 25 to 40 years old, this is the age of the population that wants to reskill. Within this range, they join such short courses, and 50% of them are women, specifically in technological professions, and the share of women in technological professions is growing. And the gender norms in professional world are being less and less evident. So upskilling, 40% of upskilling and 60% of reskilling. Upskilling is when you've tried a profession, you worked in some area for some time, you liked it, and then you want to get promoted and get more tasks, more interesting tasks. And that is done in MHP, in Bank. And rarely does the higher education cover for such upskilling programs. Yeah, unfortunately, upskilling is based on the potential of the person added to their qualification. You mentioned that many women are reskilling and upskilling today, and they need to join those professions that are that have been considered as male professions. Let's take Ukrzaliznytsia. More and more women are joining railways, different technical professions. So we need to dilute those borders between female and male professions. Then we can talk about veteran community. This is a very powerful community of motivated and skilled people who are willing to work, or sometimes they are hesitant to join and do a civilian profession. So from your practical experience, do you have reintegration programs for veterans? From my experience, we have one program. Veterans are enrolled in various courses, both men and women. They are more open to reskilling, changing their profession, because technically speaking, they are starting from zero. Technically speaking, because they have done much work in the front line, and they more often than not change their profession in order to join the army. Let's say let's say they worked in personnel management in the army, then they are thinking about doing HR. I would also talk about not only reintegration, but inclusion. And we do the link between people with disabilities and veterans, even though it may not be that obvious. We may be talking about people without experience, without a degree, without higher education. We may be talking about people from different ethnicities, from different regions, different schedules, hybrid format of work. So inclusion is not only about veterans and disabilities. It's a much broader notion that encompasses all of it that I have mentioned. And the more flexible people can feel about their work, the more successful businesses will end up. 100%. Yuri, what kind of programs have you implemented in YAPAM? How do you work with the veteran community? And Marina highlighted that it is a part of diversity area. I agree totally with Marina. We have an extensive experience in integration of veterans. We have 500 colleagues in the front line, and 10% of them have already returned. And of course, we want them to upskill quickly, to learn new skills, because some of them spent a few years in the front line, and within those years, the industry has advanced. And we're not only talking about those who are returning to office. We have the fifth wave of call for a program of IT projects and startups done by veterans. And IT community has believed for a while that integrating a veteran should be done by giving them a manual testing job or something really simple. We are going beyond this bias. We are adding AI courses in using AI for veterans, and we can see that the best results are likely to be there, because we need specialists who know how to use the AI, know how to combine those qualifications that they already have with the AI, and not just train for multiple years in hardcore coding. And many specialists could enroll in our courses for this end. And a big role, there is a big role of social integration and some mutual events that encourage mutual interest and serve as a basis for communication of people from different layers of society. Let's take sports, for instance, basketball. So we need to blend learning programs, sports events. This is a good goal for success, and we will invest in this moving forward. Well, that's a great insight, thank you. And from your experience, I know that in your company you have a lot of servicemen and veterans. What do you do with the veterans and their integration? Regarding the sport, we'll build on what you said. From last year, we have 3 veteran teams, mini football teams. This is really important, and we need to invest in this, I agree. So I will respond from the point of view of corporations and the state. From the corporate point of view, a big program for reintegration of veterans and support for those servicemen who are still in the front line. Here we do psychological support. We focus on their upskilling. And at this stage, when servicemen return, there are 2 important aspects. One is that we are in a deep demographic crisis, and veterans, apart from defending the country now, they will become the backbone of the future economy for the years to come. And this is the group of people that we need to deal with closely, and they will compete in this market. From the public point of view, from the point of view of the state, career consulting sessions could be very useful. Those who return from the front line, they ask themselves, what do I want to do? The thing that I used to do or something else? So we had cases when servicemen returned, they followed the reintegration adaptation programs, they were enrolled in those. But in a year, they come back to the front line because they feel that they can make a difference there. And we are grateful for their choice, but this is also a signal for us that we have failed somewhere in terms of career consulting, most probably. And I know of some cases of some non-governmental organizations doing career consulting. Dolado, for instance, they're doing career consulting and adaptation for veterans. So the state support is necessary there. Once a veteran understands where they want to go, education, business, and the state can all join their efforts. Do you cooperate with employment centers? It seems like they are not really doing their job well now. And do you see that party delivering what they're supposed to deliver? Are they updating veterans on the actual state of play in the market? Well, I know that my colleagues in DTEK Energo, DTEK Мережі are cooperating with the employment centers. We at Modus X, we do not really cooperate with them, and I cannot share any experience with you. Therefore, maybe colleagues could add on it. But regarding the veterans issue, they are not actually going to the employment center. They come back to their employer. So first they leave the front line, they leave the public agency, which is the armed forces of Ukraine. And only after then can they think of any other job and look for places. So we have Veteran Hub, very focused companies, and they are mostly present in big cities. So if we take a veteran from a small village or town, where do they go? Because sometimes they even don't have anyone to guide them. because employment centers are also present in big cities. They work with the youth, unemployed youth, even though they are supposed to deal with veterans too. Seems like you want to add something. Yeah, indeed, just a couple more words. In fact, many NGOs, Serce Azovstal, Azovstal, Heart of Azovstal, are actually helping veterans to reintegrate. They do career consulting. They help them to find a job. But I myself from Kharkiv, and our employment center is quite limited. And even if they carry out this function, they do it to a very limited extent. And they are not really knowledgeable about how to deal with veterans in the first place. They are used to working with the civilians who became unemployed, fired, etc. So please, if anyone from employment centers are listening to us, please give us a shout out and we could talk. Regarding veterans, in terms of statistics, for us to understand the essential character of this population for this country. Today, 1,300,000 is, and 10 million is the workforce, general workforce, and 1,300,000 is the veterans and servicemen, active servicemen. Families, veterans' families, is also part of this target group, because veterans' experience also influences their experience. And if we take this number, veterans plus their families, is 5 to 6 million people as potential workforce. Back in the ATO anti-terroristic operation stage, we provided different types of support. And since 2022, we started providing legal support, as well as psychological and medical. The most complex issue for a veteran is to get all the documents ready. Psychological and physical rehabilitation is not something veterans take up willingly. But after we've invested some time and effort in awareness raising about reasons why they should be interested in taking them up, we've seen an increase in the number of users of those services. So we maintain contacts with veterans, with their families, and we also provide them with legal assistance, which oftentimes goes beyond financial assistance. For veterans, justice matters more sometimes than for some civilians. And if they get supported, and if their family is supported, they are much more likely to come back to our company. And we try to reach out even to those families of veterans who are not our employees. So this is the target audience that we are dealing with. You need to work with veterans' families, at least at the level of psychological support, at the level of doing webinars for them on how to, on self-care. So for veteran, it means a world when a company supports their family. And we are, as an agro company, we can find ways to help families with really basic things. And when as long as the veteran, the husband, knows that his wife is not left unattended by his company, he's much more loyal to our company as an employee. And we have become much more effective once we've added this component to this veterans program. And what should the state do about this issue? Access to work. All the enterprises need to carry out medical inspections, healthcare exams, and we have outdated models of healthcare exams. They were inherited from the Soviet era, 1980s and 90s, when the production used to be much heavier and harder. And let's say a man of certain age with certain health profile, we can hire him because his potential job description involves heights and work at the height of 1.5 meter. And that means that the legal framework needs to be updated. Or we need to develop new norms and procedures for every enterprise to make sure we can hire as many qualified personnel as possible. This is crucial for enterprises.
Ветеран, людина з інвалідністю.
So, a veteran, a person with disability, as long as they are
Невідповідно, потім буде перевірка
for the updated job description, they need to be
законодавства. Вона з
hired. And this shift in
людей з інвалідністю, ветеранів.
legal framework will enable people with disabilities and veterans to enter
Старі перше, а друге
the sector more effectively. This is one point. And second point,
ми бачимо, яка кількість людей з інвалідністю ми маємо зараз.
not
От саме оце велика частина, яку навіть оце б держава зробила б, вже велика кількість
so as long as the state changed the framework, modified it, updated it, we could really
Дякую тобі за
become more effective and successful in personal retention, human capital development. I think you tapped into the
Дуже дякую
root
вам
of
за
the
ваші
issue,
думки. У
and
мене
it's
ще був блок про AI,
great
але про AI я впевнена, що ми ще поговоримо на інших
to
панельних дискусіях. Я підготувала
have it
навіть
here. We
таке
hope
міні
that
саммарі того, що зараз відбувається на ринку, і воно
stakeholders could
десь фіналізує
take
думки
it as
наших
an advice.
спікерів. Отже, вакансії
Now,
повернулися
just a
до
couple of
іноді
more
подекуди
points. Vacancies
та в лютому 2025
have
року.
come back
Це
to
нові
the
дані за
pre-war
осінь,
indicators.
ще не було даних, було 95-99
As of
тисяч вакансій, а у січні
spring
22
and
року було 97 тисяч вакансій.
97,000 vacancies. So the labor market has recovered. As for IT, the peak in 2025, we had 11,000 in January and before
22 року
till war till 2022, I think 14 to 16,000. IT hasn't recovered yet, and there is still deficit of staff.
тобто у нас пропозиція резюме
Paradox of the market. So there is growth of
з'являються вакансії.
CV. So people are finding job earlier than the vacant jobs are posted in the market. And we also discussed that it is very hard to find highly qualified specialists. Unfortunately, they've left. And what Marina has mentioned and Natalia, it is very important to implement in companies the upskilling and reskilling programs and to work also with a category
Спеціалістів
of diverse specialists and engage them into work. So who's working? And so the biggest deficit is electricity, logistics, and agrarian field, everything that we've discussed. Unfortunately, in educational field, we also see that these specialists are not that attractive, let us say so. And it is very important to work with our children, I guess, to discuss that, well, you know, to reduce, because still there is a positive attitude to IT that only IT sphere has money. You know, but I think that tractor drivers and people who will now develop in production specialties, they will earn more than IT sometimes, I think. Maybe, well, I think that maybe I've gone to some other specialty because this entrepreneurship will eat me up soon. As for the deficit, there's deficit of highly skilled specialists, and young generation is coming in waves and less production specialties, so the demand is growing here. As for AI, the state is forming the state strategy, DMRIA Go services, so that we can use AI to the maximum, but 58% of Ukrainians are using AI already, 25% only are using AI daily. I have read recently that the founder of Spotify has decided to hire people only with only one question: is that person really needed, and has AI substituted that person or not yet? So they will hire the employees, only those who cannot be substituted by AI, like someone who is working manually, or they are impacting the situation significantly in terms of AI as well. So we can talk during the break about that, and I would like to invite our next moderator to the floor. Thank you very much, Snezhana Marina, Lesya, Natalia, Yuri. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, give you the floor. Dear colleagues, hello. We start the third panel, how AI is transforming the industry, new era of Ukrainian technology. Our speakers are Yaroslava Zhnuk, the first law, Maxim Balanyuk, Medinvest Digital, Bogdan Kruglik, Friend, Janusz Podwysotsky, Knes, and Konstantin Karpov, Holy Water. Today, we are living in a moment when AI is, well, it's not the futurism, it's not from the future, but it's what is happening nowadays. And we all do understand how AI is impacting different sectors of economy, taking into account the problems that were mentioned during the previous discussion. Well, it's the step that we have to make to transform AI in businesses. Understanding all the importance of the topic, in Association IT Ukraine, we've created the committee where we have the colleagues from this field in order to form the roadmap of development of AI field. Well, actually, 3 of the participants of the panel discussion are included to this committee, and also they joined the Secretariat on regulating AI tools, so it's the first such organization in Ukraine. I would like to start with Yaroslav, because from the topic where AI is rescuing lives, those are defense technologies. Ukraine is already creating military technical decisions because the whole world is gonna compete for that in the future. So my question is, you are promoting the drone valley idea all the time. How do you think, what is needed? Investments, regulations, or people so that we can do that? Hi, thank you. Glad to be here. Actually, all my life I've been working in entrepreneurship, and I have technical education, Kyiv Polytechnical University, applied math, and now I'm working at PodCoop. We were making cameras for pets, and I have 2 businesses that are in defense technologies. That is Fourth Law company that is making autonomous systems of mass scaling and automatic systems for drones, and out systems, television cameras. You know, talking about a broader framework of our today's discussion, it's important for us to understand that combination of AI and the robot techniques, it's a huge transformational power, and in the next several dozens of years, it will change a lot of industries, starting from defense, which is one of such industries, and coming to logistics, agriculture, construction, manufacturing. Many of these tasks will be made by autonomous robots under the supervision of people. So at least from the place where I am, it seems to me that defense field is a key focus. It should be the key focus for our state. I am not reducing the importance of other fields of economy, but, well, it is clear that the biggest part of our efforts are aimed there, are going there. And unfortunately, Ukraine, unfortunately, together with Russia, are the two nations in the world that are leading the field of autonomic robotics for defense. And that is developed rapidly, faster than our Western partners and faster than China. And Eastern partners of Russia managed to catch up with the things that they missed in 2022, 23, and 24. So in 1 year, Ukraine separately and Russia separately are making more progress in defense technologies and use of AI for these purposes than, so to say, Europe to catch up with us. So from 25, we are in 26, so Europe is in January 2022 till, so to say, conditionally June 2022. And that disturbs me significantly, but altogether with that, we have significant achievements. And in order to make the technologies, well, step by step, these technologies are taking the employment from people. Either those are drones that are of mass production, they are very cheap, and it is possible to make the cheap manufacturing so that we can make a drone which costs $500, or those are some systems. Step by step, we are eliminating, we are taking some part of work from people, and we are coming to the future, indeed, where with no exaggeration, you can just imagine how in several years the autonomous mission, the Earth robot test complex, is going dozens of kilometers, and he has dozens of drones on it, and has a dozen of defense drones that exist in order to autonomously catch the drones of the enemy that will autonomously go somewhere. And they can autonomously combat that. So these are examples of things that are being developed right now. It's just to give you the framework for everyone to understand where we are moving and what is happening right now. And if we won't do that, then the enemy will do that for sure. Our only chance is to build such an ecosystem for innovations in Ukraine and in the Western world, if you're talking broader, so that it can create per unit of time per year more challenges for the enemy than the enemy can create for us with their system. So till we create 50 challenges for our enemy and they can only respond to 20 of those, and they can create 20 challenges for us that we can respond, we will be winning. Now it is hard for me to say we don't have the full information, but I think we are now equal, and I would like us to be faster in this regard. Thank you. As for Europe, last month I returned from the conference on technologies, and yeah, you will be really haunted by Europeans. They have realized that too late, unfortunately, and I told them that now I have such a feeling that now they are in the condition of January 2022. They realized the necessity. They are launching investment programs for dual-use technologies. So you will be haunted, but please stay and develop in Ukraine. Yeah, they are developing for a really long time. We are communicating for years, but there should have been unknown drones over the airport of Copenhagen in order to start moving. But I think they didn't wake up still till the end, and there is such worries in industry until they have some Pearl Harbor, they won't be able to wake up. Thank you. If Miltech is about speed, so industry, it's about clarity. Midwest Digital, it's the example of using AI in production. So my question to Maxim, you were talking a lot about the quality of data as a challenge. How do you do that in Midwest Digital? The question is simple and complicated at the same time. We have a separate unit which is specialized in that, and there is no know-how just the best practices, classical. When I was talking about the data, I was not saying, like in the context, I was not saying that we are focusing on that exclusively, but that with all that hype of artificial intelligence, some misunderstanding, because like AI and what we are talking about AI use and mixed notions, I was saying that the data, the quality of data is very important, and in order to have successful implementation of any technologies that can be used in AI, they should be successful. Because even the discussion that we have today, I don't know what kind of AI we are talking about. Are we talking about language models and how that is impacting the industry, or some other elements? And I am confident that MilTech, it's the models, or ChatGPT won't be helpful here, I think. It is helpful. Okay, it is helpful a bit, I think so. But I think that there are more critically important elements, like other elements that are of higher importance. So what is important? In discussion, in talks, in implementation of any technologies, it's important to understand the essence. We've been talking about expertise and people with high expertise, that people have to be at their jobs and about the most popular professions, etc. And lately, I often say that we have to talk about AI not for white collars, who, all the providers are talking about that right now, but we are talking about AI for blue collars, or the so-called gray collars. And in MedInvest Digital, in our group of companies, MedInvest, and now even for other companies beyond our group, we are trying to promote such an expert thing, and we are trying to control the expectations of businesses. What technologies can give us, to level up the expectations just a bit, so that there is no issue that AI is a silver bullet, just you press the button and it does everything. It's a very powerful technology. Yes, these technologies have become less expensive in these years, but we are tired of calculating how much cheaper it is to make some solutions that we've been making back in 2022. And we've been working with NLP technology that is working with natural language, and we were trying to make the automatization of certain language processes. And back then it was hundreds of times more expensive than now, because now it costs, well, not that much. For Ukrainian businesses, it's an opportunity, because we can implement, we are always comparing that with the cost of resource. So coming back to this, we are not doing anything extraordinary. There are some classic things. We are talking about their quality, and there are best practices that are used and should be used by companies. We just need to work on that. We should not think that now some AI will come because somebody who is selling the AI told us, we will let it in, it will collect the data, it will structure the data, it will clear the data, and it will be working based on data. It doesn't work this way. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we have to manage our expectations. Okay, Bogdan, question to you. AI in the fields, it sounds poetically, but it's about the use of data. So let us talk about AI in agrarian sector. How your products are helping the farmers to prognose the harvest and optimize their resources. Hi, very interesting question, because in Ukraine, we have approximately 32 million of hectares and only 5 million is digitalized. So from these 5 million, only like 70% are now working on their culture of manufacturing to be efficient and so on, to be productive. And 30% more are kind of fighting and saying that we are implementing AI. And there is quite a lot of discussions regarding AI. But I always have a question. How can we use AI if we still haven't learned how to collect data, how to validate, analyze data, then kind of take it, etc., etc.? All the processes in the field now are just started their automatization. I mean, autopilot, system of automatic switching off, etc. So we haven't come to automatization in full. The person is still working in the fields and will be working. So AI will be only as an assistant, you know, with the help of which we can see where there are some illnesses or some harmful insects. And people don't want to study in institutions, yeah, because it's not interesting. Because the previous panel said that, yeah, it is not interesting for them. It's like working with pigs, you know. All of that is cool, but not true. Or fun, or not true. But because now the salary of the pilot of the equipment, I can say pilot because they are managing the equipment, which costs like $500,000, $1 million, or sometimes even $1.5 million per set. So they are piloting because they are not working with their hands, but they are observing. They are participant of the process, and their salary is from $2,000 to $5,000. It's just the person who's a mechanic. If we are talking about animals, yeah, there are no veterinary doctors, and the cost is $70,000. So 70,000 hryvnias. And we are coming back to AI prognosis. So yeah, we are prognosing the harvest. Do we have crop-wise, for example? So this is farm management system, which covers almost 4 million hectares, and they are trying to do the prognosis. It's not 100% exact data. We cannot rely on that because everybody goes to satellites, and then you are coming to the field, and well, you see that the satellite and what is there on the field, those are different things. The solutions that we are selling, that is a distribution of Hacker Robotics, a Swiss company, which is for 2 years in the market. These are the protection means of 2 per 2 centimeters, so they are recognizing the main crop, for example, on the places of hybridization. So they are growing the seed, and then they are taking the grain. So we get, and it is also recognizing the weeds. And it gives up to 90% of protection, taking into account optimization of logistics and protection of the substance itself. And, well, there are representatives of OTP Bank. We have the joint program with them. And in Ukraine last year, 4 such machines have been functioning already. And we brought 7 more this year from the world market. We were kind of fighting hard to get these machines for our employees, because in Holland 150 machines were sold like that are optimizing and increasing efficiency. What does it mean? So when we give less chemicals, yeah, per plant, then I will consume as a human better product of higher quality, because the future is for eco products. And you know, the shelves in the supermarket, like super digital products, full business technology of growth that will be supported by AI and blockchain. And there will be, I'm sorry, products just like for Africa. I'm sorry for this comparison, with low quality. And unfortunately, Ukraine is still the country of low quality of growing products, because if we are talking about our grain, we are exporting that with bad quality. And it is because of the culture of manufacturing and use of AI as well. In Ukraine, we have an AI agent, Arni, it is called, and they are testing the model in the last 2 years. The model that is helping the agrarians to make better decisions of higher quality and rationally use some protection tools, which is actually the business. So if we are talking about AI, agrarian sectors, business also has people who in their capabilities are not as developed as AI sector. And we need to understand that the average age is approximately 45, 50 years old in agrarian sector. And when you are coming to different farms, and I'm a very practical person, I'm coming to farms, I'm communicating with agrarians, etc., etc. So when you are showing the AI agent that will help them to make decisions faster, They are telling you where to go and who you came from. So, kind of preaching of technologies that we have in the framework of technologies, it's quite hard. But in the last 3 years, it has improved. And we as a company are working on building digital infrastructure. We have our own media writer that gives clear data about for agrarians in order to build everything. We have some IT solutions. Our startup is called Flying Data because it is collecting data from the fields, and we want to digitalize around like 1,200 data from the field so that next we can effectively manage agrarian business. In 10 years, Ukrainian agrarian business will be mechanized. That is for sure we won't have people working on tractors. We are doing this already, and this year the first platform will come to the field and to farmers, to agrarians. There will be no human. So it's a combination of technologies, how we are going support the military sector, right? The technology is used the same as on drones. And I hope that the war will be over for sure, and we will be able to reintegrate the veterans to the agrarian sector. And the agrarian sector has really huge deficit of human resources. Thank you very much. Thank you. So in order to use the AI in the agrarian sector, you need actually to be explaining, yeah, we are preachers, you know, in the last 5-6 years of our company, and I am the director in the latest years, and I am preaching about the technologies, innovations, because my dad is a farmer. Believe me, the first sale you should make to your dad. If you are selling this to your dad, then any other farmer will not be difficult for me. Okay, Konstantin, question to you, because AI in creative industries, it's more of a norm than exception from the rule. But how don't we lose our humanity in the world where everything can be created by machines? And how does AI change the approach to branding and communication with audience? Well, actually, here we can come to basics of automatization, how automatization is happening. Because automatization is happening in the processes which are already sustainable, and it is clear how that is happening. So, for example, when we are talking about creation of creatives for ads or some brand materials, it means that we cannot say to the AI, do it this way, because first we need to make the process, you know, and only then when we understand where we have some things, and it's very easy because you're using the lean methodology, and well, this might happen, this is happening, and it's universal advice for all the industries. If we are talking about creative marketing, yeah, we are using that, but it's for the automatization, and we have a very big team of creative marketologists, and they are developing the ideas on their own. Of course, AI is helping them. Well, when we are talking about AI, is having access to the wisest network in the world because it has like all the internet in it, and it will be very unethical, I think, to not use that if you have the possibility, and it speeds up the processes and increases the quality. So that's when we are talking about some more ready-made solutions that is full when marketologists are creating the idea, and AI helps either to develop the idea or to create several different ideas. So thus we are creating our creatives, but then we see that this potential is easy for scaling. So we are talking that the use of AI is more about time efficiency and reducing costs for scaling. And if we are talking about scaling in product companies like Holy Water, this is impacting us significantly. It is impacting our all internal processes, including our panel ending up with marketing. And next, if we are talking about other industries, because we are not just creative company, we kind of creativity is of course part of us, but still we are relying on AI quite a lot, not just in the processes, but also in writing codes, operations, and financials. In some places, you are using that not as a ground truth, but more as a story that is helpful, that will help you having this ground tool. You can use that more efficiently. Okay, thank you. Janusz, my question to you. Where there is AI, there are risks. Tell us, please, can AI become a tool for cyber protection, prognosing the attacks in real-time mode? Well, yeah, not bad. Respect to everyone. Everybody has told about AI, and I will talk a bit about machine learning in the group of NASA, and I will return to your question. We also have some cases, and we have started back in 2016 before it became the mainstreaming and a hype. And we started using the machine learning in such directions as first prognosing generation of solar energy, second is prevention of losses in generation, and the third is preparation of commercial offers with the help of machine learning and AI in neural networks, I mean. So the main profits, where we are preventing losses, annually we are preventing losses of generation, approximately around 15 gigawatts. For understanding, 15 gigawatts is like 6,500 housings are using that. It's about machine learning. When we are analyzing the condition of equipment, we are analyzing a lot of data based on graphs and papers where there's data and big data that were collected for multiple years. We are analyzing all of that with machine learning. We are preventing losses. Briefly, this way. So now coming back to cybersecurity, AI is actually just the tip of the iceberg, and then data, architecture, strategies, cybersecurity, people, processes, and a lot of things. So cybersecurity is one of the main factors, one of the most crucial ones of how do you work with AI, knowing that you can create some incidents, etc., because it's like when we are talking about the growth of strength of AI, and there is like cyber attacks, because cyber attacks are using the AI strength. So in NAS companies group, we are working with the fact that we are conducting active trainings for the users on control of compliance, how to use the models. We are developing certain documentation. We are integrating into our corporate supporters. We have corporate bot. We won't talk about bots more today, but yeah, we have it, and its main task is to give short and brief answers based on our data, how do users behave in certain situation, some recommendations in compliance and the policy of information safety, etc. But the main and key thing is probably like working with people, and then secondary, it's your soft part, because when we are talking about cybersecurity, it doesn't matter how many systems you are implementing of cybersecurity. Like one offended accountant can just spoil the whole situation for you. So first of all, it's working with people, upscale their level of understanding of working with AI, and actually that is the algorithm that will give its results.
Again, awareness raising, right? Yaroslav, because your experience blends the startup experience in defense industry. Because defense is gaining traction now, there are many startups in defense industry. What are the pitfalls that you need to avoid when you launch a startup in defense? So if anyone wants to have a startup in defense using the AI, then you need to take into consideration all things that colleagues mentioned. There is a confusion about these two letters, AI, what we are talking about exactly. There is certain Evans, AI specialist, who says AI is anything that doesn't work yet. In the 90s, AI was a big blue computer that prevailed over Harry Kasparov in chess. Then there was a breakthrough in image recognition by cognitive networks, and that was the skill to recognize images. And I did it a lot in the previous best. Then in 2018-19, we had new architecture, transformers that led to such instruments as ChatGPT, the language models that we are using extensively now. Then machine learning. Some tools that facilitate planning and forecasting. So whatever has not been used yet is labeled as AI. And the new technological solutions that appeared were available thanks to the scientific progress. We cannot overlook the AI because it may be even a bigger invention than the internet or the computers in the history of humanity. And it's making a huge revolution in many industries. I've lived for 6 years in San Francisco. One of the basic things that any entrepreneur is asked by an investor, why now? And how are you unique? The answer in those questions usually lies in the fact that some things have become possible now, or some social changes happened in economy, there have been some behavioral changes. Such global shifts create new opportunities. And we in Ukraine, we are going through two gigantic changes that are creating new business opportunities. One is the full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, a great change in status quo. And two, the AI revolution. My companies are built on the foundation of this, and they're creating value in society in places where it was absent before, when a drone from at the distance of 20-30 kilometers from a tank can destroy it. We didn't have drones, we didn't have AI before. We could not program the drones as we can today. So what it takes to have a successful company, a big market, innovation, you're doing something that others do not, and demand. You need to do something that the end customer will need. It's not something that you invented and you think that someone may need. My previous company was the first Ukrainian company to make it to an accelerator whose slogan was "Make something people want." So the purpose of the accelerator was to make the company show their product as soon as possible and to find clients. As soon as you find clients ready to pay money for your product, it means that they need this product so badly that they're ready to pay you for this. And that is an engine for your business that moves your business in the direction it needs. And this is why Ukraine is so cutting edge. We have a very fast feedback mechanism cycle. So you can upload the software into a drone, you send it to Konstantinivka, to the front line, and within 24 hours, the serviceman will give you feedback about how it goes. And in Brussels, it will take you months to get just a permission to use the drone. So this quick feedback cycle generates data, and data is a super useful instrument in developing AI and neural networks. So this is a perfect storm that gives us Russians, or lemons in the form of Russians, and we make lemonade out of it. Thank you. How does the AI change the job descriptions? Well, in fact, we have AI skeptics here among our colleagues, but it's really close to the reality, and I'm enjoying myself in this panel, indeed. How do your roles in our company change because of the AI? It's not that we are a traditional service company, even though we mostly do services, we provide services. We have the main contractor, which is the Metinvest group of companies. And this is why we had a different segmentation of roles. We didn't have a traditional AI, that is IT department. And my understanding of certain roles was slightly different from the way it was in outsource. For a long time, I had a hard time understanding why a business analysis that I know from fintech and banks, this is one profile, and a business analyst from outsource is a different analyst. And these two specialists were doing different jobs. So we are just going back to the beginning now. And the AI dilutes the segmentation today. And I can see it as an opportunity for people to expand their skill with the help of the AI, because it gives you a chance to learn, to look for information. We are creating new tools. We are creating assistants that are helping people to address their tasks. We are, well, basically developing sort of inclusion in this way too. Or we are opening the areas that used to be inaccessible for certain specialists. So yes, of course, roles are changing. If you're an analyst, then you need to understand what kind of business it is, what its purpose is. And businesses hate when we ask them, what do you need? They want us to say, we know your business, we know that solutions are such and such, and you can create such benefits off of it. And then they evaluate their strategies and proceed. So my takeaway is that we need to have more specialists now, expand our roles, and become proactive. So let's say if an engineer disappears, I actually believe that it won't happen. We hire young specialists, even though it may go opposite the trend. We can develop an engineer, not a developer, not a cosmonaut, you know. And young engineers will have an easier time upskilling and adapting to the objectives that we have in mind. So business analysts and engineers and managers will stay, but we need to be cautious about the extremes. Everyone needs to make their contribution from their perspective. So I won't say that the AI has really impacted the set of roles. Our roles are just expanding. This is a complex issue, basically, and since 2021, we have optimized our company so well that we don't have such roles that the AI could take from us tomorrow. So we don't have such a problem. Right, Bogdan? What are the barriers for the AI development in agro sector? Maybe legal barriers or some others? Because I know that we have a lot of barriers. There are no legal barriers because no one understands what's going on there and no one is meddling there. And that is fantastic. In this country, you can do whatever you fancy. when it comes to tech and agro-tech. What will we face in terms of obstacles? The state needs to give it a thought and establish a data hub, because the state should be handling it. The renovation of soil map of Ukraine, the update of the soil map of Ukraine happened decades ago, and no one knows currently much about the soils in Ukraine. And the AI can just assist you in managing your business. Then in education, we're based in Vinnytsia, and over the recent 3 years, we established 3 research centers based at local universities, and we are starting to update the curriculums, because that random things that they stayed there and that get approved by the state bodies, it's just inadmissible. And we need 70% of practice and 30% of theory in the curriculum, depending on the market. And all the curriculums should be developed together with businesses. So we can see more and more businesses that are entering education and trying to train both students and teachers. And this is quite surrealistic to me. This year, we are doing a textbook on innovations in agro sector. So, because all the textbooks that were available until now were, the paper was yellow. They were very old. And those textbooks are really irrelevant. So how can we innovate unless we stay in touch with the real tendencies and implement them? Then scientific parks can also play their role. There is a win-win strategy in agri-food, and if you go to universities, you will find no one who's familiar with this concept. The UN, it seems that by 2050, some professions should be updated, and there are forecasts about the shifts in the market, and no one actually are staying in touch with those developments. When we go to the enterprise, we need an engineer in innovative technology who can monitor different devices, satellites, computers, and they use very simple terms. And at universities, they are still clinging on to very old-fashioned professions. And we need to couple businesses and universities. But business should not be ultimately responsible for the quality of education. I, as a business, I want the following. I need a specialist. The adaptation in the company should last no longer than 1 month. And then it's either yes or no. Business is moving, evolving fast, and the economy forces us to do so. And we have new challenges on a daily basis, not on a quarterly or monthly basis. And the specialist that I needed a month ago may become irrelevant today. I need those specialists to make fewer mistakes. what is the purpose of the AI? This is a guarantee against making mistakes. So we need to minimize error. AI serves as a error-proof technology, and we need to transform education, blend it with business, and that should be voluntary on the part of all the parties. We had cases when a university or a college comes in and asks what you need. And this is how we had really success stories happening. $7,000, that was an investment we made to establish a lab. And then MHP and Horsch followed in our suit. Thousands of euros have been invested to develop 150 square meters, and they are selling agriculture tools of total value 300, 400 euros. And these tools are not given their proper merit by the universities because they are not familiar with the cutting-edge technologies. I agree that businesses are not obliged to do this, but we get emails and letters from the Ministry of Education to engage with the businesses, to update school and university curriculums, and that means that business will be necessary here. Yeah, we also cooperate with grant institutions, USAID and others, Skills for Recovery. So we are involved there, and I will do consultations regarding our tech and how vocational training schools can update their curriculums. And we actually have very fruitful meetings, and they go, say what we need to change, and we will do this. That means responsibility, and we give advice that you need to do this and that, but that takes 2 to 3 years to be approved, and then the colleges and universities go that Ministry of Education and Ministry of Economy will not approve it. Then the question arises, why should businesses invest their effort and just actually waste their time because their suggestions are not being implemented? And business has become just another extension of educational establishments. Metinvest decided to set up their own university, and it's still functioning, Metinvest Polytechnics. So building on what my colleague said, we also provided advice and guidance to universities and colleges, and the bureaucratic processes of getting all that improved just neutralizes the effort. By the time it gets approved, we have different needs. So we had some cases when universities wanted to have a third party who could calculate the costs of updating their curriculum and doing scientific visits. So, but actually, it defeats the purpose of doing that on the part of the university. we, at MedInvest, we have internships for students that last 2 weeks, and that is funded by taxpayers' money. And in those 2 weeks, it's really hard to teach anything to anyone. And all that process is just a simulation of internship, just to put some, just for the sake of having a document that you've concluded an internship without any real result. And we also had students who come over for internship and they just ask for a stamp or a seal. They're not really interested in getting real practice. Many people are working remotely, and some had to come to office in order just to put a seal on a document. So I will stop here because this is something that really bothers me. So that means that we need to work on the legal framework. Next question to you. What is the difference between AI perception in Ukrainian and international businesses? So we are actually international company, Europe, US, and Asia, just a little bit. In terms of AI, I have a friend in London, and he told me about an experience in their company. So you have sort of credit card with unlimited sum on it, and the staff members can use it to test and try any ideas that they may have. And so they do it, they report, and in a week you get feedback. In our company, we have a similar story. Because we use hundreds of tools, we have big teams, and if we can use a tool, we will use it. Because unless you do it, someone else will. I also looked at some chart and how buyback can be figured out with the help of the AI. So if you can implement something faster, accumulatively, it will give you a big difference in terms of profit in 1 year. In Ukraine, I talked to many entrepreneurs and employees, and few people understand what the AI are. GPT is an architecture, it's a good compressor of data that can focus its attention on certain tokens. It has a lot of context. The AI is still a black box because many people do not understand what it is, and where it can be used, where it should not be used. And if we look at the specificity of our company, we have a lot of service providers. And of course, they could all use a cursor in certain departments. But if we take finance or delivery, they have their classical model that will stay. But that also depends on the stakeholders the company has and the questions that you get asked or the references that you get. You need to keep an eye on them with the help of the AI.
Для тебе ось це розуміння про використання AI, воно прийде значно пізніше.
But some companies are bound to learn more about AI later than others because they have other target markets. How about safety and risks and AI? Wow. Everything that I wanted to say, my colleagues mentioned everything, 100%. They mentioned everything. Agro, Miltech, Maxim mentioned everything that I wanted to say. We need to change the topic of the discussion. Well, that means that you're joining your effort and we are getting a full understanding of the topic. Yeah, it's great that you're calling things with their names. And respect for what you've done in Vinnytsia, labs based at universities. So what are the risks of using the AI? Well, basically, they are multiple. I was getting ready for another question. The AI predicted that I would have a different question at this panel. Well, talking of risks, three are the key: quality of data, cybersecurity, and the third, I'm forgetting, maybe my colleagues will help me out on this. Human personal management. Well, basically we had many cases when it went beyond cybersecurity. We're talking about business processes. When you need to compare two contracts, you would spend 10 hours, and now we can do it in 30 minutes. This is risk number one. That means that the company wants to replace me, and that creates negative feelings. And the question of maturity arises. So we are not firing people. We are just taking that routine from you so that you can focus on the core strategizing, planning. That is, if I were to be brief.
I would like to add to this because actually it's incredibly important when, for example, like we are talking about some technologies like any automatization of business processes, we need to understand that in the organization, like historically, there are some people who are working there and they have some career, some job, etc. When the technological company comes and they say like, look, we have a solution and we will cut 50% of your people, yeah? For example, the director of some department might feel, well, he will not be dismissed. However, well, maybe his importance will get 50% less. And if he used to have 100 of people, so for example, and then it means that some departments might be united and he will lose his position. Very often it's the barrier for implementation of some solutions. And in small companies, for example, when we have like one decision maker, etc., it is easier. But in big companies, when there are some structures, some dependency, maybe some politics, it is much harder. And the same about the state. It is quite difficult. And when there are such prognoses, like, for example, something will change for like 30% per year, well, to be sincere, it takes a long time. And, well, it is not because they don't want to do that or there's lack of technologies, etc. There is certain social component which is also necessary, because if we just, we set it and we do it, those are additional risks, and very often businesses don't need these risks because it might impact their sustainability. Yeah, by the way, I can add a bit about the risks, as it was mentioned about the departments and finance, because now, for example, the questions that are asked most often on any conferences, and if you are talking to journalists, for example, is it a bulb or not? And actually, well, so to say, as of now, globally, most people say that, well, most probably not, but if we look at historical references, well, it is really like with the things that were happening in 70s and 80s of the last decade, because Again, people were switching from accountants to computers, and for a long time, I think like 10 years, while they were switching from computers, like accountants to computers, it is clear there is some scale of calculations and everything is much better, but if we take into account the economical efficiency, when we see, for example, like the final net profit or something like that, it was the same, because when the new computers emerged back then, they were new, they had to be maintained, and all the money spent on that was covering the economic efficiency that they were giving. I think now there is a very similar period, because the most important thing that happened at the beginning of this year, Microsoft together with OpenAI, they said that we are calculating the model for using AI that will include the financial efficiency, because before that it was never used, and actually in the Valley and in other regions and there are different focuses on financial efficiency, because when we are talking still about some quite big substantial investments into AI for companies, for example, well, the obvious subscription is like ChatGPT $27, but some big solutions, well, it is not obvious whether there will be return of investments, because we are in a stage where it for sure won't be able to substitute people. So yeah, it's a good development, but still it doesn't give the quality that is expected from them. Thank you very much. I had to have the last questions, but yeah, I prefer to stick to our timing. Thank you very much for such good dialogue and for being sincere. What I took for myself from this discussion, when AI solution is very obvious, like for example in the battlefield, then it is possible not to work with the educational activities. And actually, when the decision is more long-term and strategic, well, here we need to conduct educational activities, both for employees and clients. Thank you very much. Yeah, next time, offer me to take a seat first, and then the colleagues won't have anything to add, you know. Thank you.